It was late at night now. They had talked and talked. Jonas sat wrapped in a robe belonging to the giver, the long robe that only elders wore. It was possible what they had planned, barely possible. If it failed, he would very likely be killed. But what did it matter? If he stayed, his life was no longer worth living. Yes, he told the giver. I'll do it. I think I can do it. I'll try anyway, but I want you to come with me. The giver shook his head. Jonas, he said, the community has depended all these generations back and back and back on a resident receiver to hold their memories for them. I've turned over many of them to you in the past year, and I can't take them back. There's no way for me to get them back if I have given them. So, if you escape, once you are gone, and Jonas, you know that you can never return. Jonas nodded solemnly. It was the terrifying part. Yes, he said, I know, but if you come with me. The giver shook his head and made a gesture to silence him. He continued, if you get away, if you get beyond, if you get to elsewhere, it will mean that the community has to bear the burden themselves of the memories you have been holding of them. I think they can, that they will acquire some wisdom, but it will be desperately hard for them. When we lost Rosemary 10 years ago, and her memories returned to the people, they panicked. And those were such few memories compared to yours. When your memories return, they'll need help. I'll remember how I helped you in the beginning, when the receiving of memories was new to you. Jonas nodded. Well, it was scary at first, and it hurt a lot. You needed me then, and now they will. It's no use. They'll find someone to take my place. They'll choose a new receiver. There's no one ready for training, not right away. Oh, they'll speed up the selection, of course, but I can't think of another child who has the right qualities. Well, there's a little female with pale eyes, but she's only a 6. That's correct. I know the one you mean. Her name is Catherine, but she's too young, so they'll have to be forced to bear those memories. I want you to come, Giver, Jonas pleaded. No, I have to stay here, the giver said firmly. I want you, Jonas. If I go with you and together we take away all their protection from the memories, Jonas, the community will be left with no one to help them. They'll be thrown into chaos. They'll destroy themselves. I can't go. Giver, Jonas suggested. You don't need to care about the rest of them. The giver looked at him with a questioning smile. Jonas hung his head. Of course they needed to care. It was the meaning of everything. And in any case, Jonas, the giver sighed, I wouldn't make it. I'm very weakened now. Do you know that I no longer see colors? Jonas's heart broke. He reached for the giver's hand. You have the colors? You have the colors. Excuse me. You have the colors, the giver told him. And you have the courage. I will help you have the strength. A year ago, Jonas reminded them, when I had just become a 12, when I began to see my first color, you told me that the beginning had to be different for you. But that I wouldn't understand. The giver brightened. That's true. And do you know, Jonas, that with all your knowledge now, with your memories, with all you've learned, still you won't understand? Because I've been a little selfish. I haven't given any of it to you. I wanted to keep it for myself to the last. Keep what? When I was just a boy younger than you, it began to come to me. It wasn't the seeing beyond for me. It was different. For me, it was hearing beyond. Jonas frowned, trying to figure that out. What did you hear? He asked. Music, the giver said, smiling. I began to hear something truly remarkable, and it's called music. I'll give you some before I go. Jonas shook his head emphatically. No, giver, he said. I want you to keep that, to have it with you when I'm gone. Jonas went home the next morning, cheerfully greeted his parents, and lied so easily about what a busy, pleasant night he had had. His father had smiled and lied easily too, about his busy and pleasant day the day before. Throughout the school day, as he did his lessons, Jonas went over his plan in his head. It seemed startlingly simple. Jonas and the giver had gone over it late into the night hours. For the next 2 weeks, as the time for December ceremony approached, the giver would transfer every memory of courage and strength that he could to Jonas. He would need those to help him find elsewhere that they were sure both existed. They knew it would be a very difficult journey. Then, in the middle of the night, before the ceremony, Jonas would secretly leave his dwelling. This was probably the most dangerous part, because it was a violation of a major rule for any citizen, not on official business, to leave a dwelling at night. "I'll leave at midnight," Jonas said. "The food collectors will be finished picking up the evening meal remains by then, and the path maintenance crews don't start their work that early, so there won't be anyone to see me, unless of course someone is out in emergency business." I don't know what you should do if you are seen, Jonas," the giver had said. "I have memories, of course, of all kinds of escapes, people fleeing from terrible things throughout history. But every situation is individual. There is no memory of one like this." "I'll be careful," Jonas said. "No one will see me." "As receiver in training, you're held in very high respect already, so I think you wouldn't be questioned very forcefully." "I'd just say it was some important errand for the receiver. I'd say it was all your fault that I was out after hours," Jonas teased. They both laughed a little nervously. But Jonas was certain that he could slip away unseen from his house, carrying an extra set of clothing. Silently, he would take his bicycle out to the riverbank and leave it there in the bushes with the clothing folded beside it. Then he would make his way through the darkness on foot silently to the annex. "There's no nightmare attendant," the giver explained. "There's no nighttime attendant," the giver explained. "I'll leave the door unlocked. You simply slip into the room. I'll be waiting for you." His parents would discover when they awoke that he was gone. They would also find a cheerful note from Jonas on his bed, telling him that he was going out for an early morning ride along the river, but he would be back for the ceremony. His parents would be irritated, but not alarmed. They would think him inconsiderate, and they would plan to chastise him later. They would wait. With mounting anger for him, finally they would be forced to go, taking Lily to the ceremony without them. "They won't say anything to anyone, though," Jonas said, quite certain. They won't call attention to my rudeness, because it would reflect on their parenting. And anyway, everyone is so involved in the ceremony that they probably won't even notice that I'm there. Now that I'm a 12 in training, I don't have to sit with my age group anymore, so Asher will think I'm with my parents, or with you." "And your parents will assume you're with Asher or with me." Jonas shrugged. It'll take everyone a while to realize I'm not there at all." "And you and I will be long on our way by then." In the early morning, the giver would order a vehicle driver from the speaker. He visited the other communities frequently, meeting with the elders. His responsibilities extended over all the surrounding areas, so this would not be an unusual undertaking. Ordinarily, the giver did not attend the December ceremony. Last year he had been present only because of the occasion of Jonas's selection, in which he was so involved. But his life was usually quite separate from the community. No one would comment on his absence or on the fact that he had chosen this day to be away. When the driver and vehicle arrived, the giver would send the driver on a brief errand. During his absence, the giver would help Jonas hide in the storage area of the vehicle. He would have with him a bundle of food which the giver would save from his own meals during the next 2 weeks. The ceremony would begin, and with all the community there, and then by then Jonas and the giver would be on their way. By midday, Jonas's absence would become apparent, and could be cause for a serious concern. The ceremony would not be disrupted. Such a disruption would be unthinkable, but searchers would be sent out into the community. By the time his bicycle and clothing were found, the giver would be returning. Jonas by then would be on his own, making his journey elsewhere. The giver on his return would find the community in a state of confusion and panic, confronted by a situation which they had never faced before, and having no memories from which either solace or wisdom, they would not know what to do, and would seek his advice. He would go to the auditorium where these people would be gathered still. He would stride on the stage and command their attention. He would make the solemn announcement that Jonas had been lost in the river. He would immediately begin the ceremony of loss. Jonas, Jonas, they would say loudly as they had once said the name of Caleb. The giver would lead the chant. Together they would let Jonas's presence from their lives fade away as they had said his name in unison, more slowly, softer and softer, until he was disappearing from them, until he was no more than an occasional murmur, and then, by the end of the long day, gone forever, not to be mentioned ever again. Their attention would turn to the overwhelming task of bearing the memories themselves. The giver would help them. Yes, I understand that they'll need you, Jonas had said at the end of the lengthy discussion and planning. But I need you too. Please, come with me. He knew the answer even as he made the final plea. My work will be finished, the giver had replied gently, when I have helped the community to change and become whole. I'm grateful to you, Jonas, because without you I would never have figured out a way to bring about change. But your role is now to escape, and my role is to stay. But don't you want to be with me, Giver? Jonas asked sadly. The giver hugged him. I love you, Jonas, he said, but I have another place to go. My work here is finished, and I want to be with my daughter. Jonas had been staring glumly at the floor. Now he looked up startled. I didn't know you had a daughter, Giver. You told me that you'd had a spouse, but I never knew about your daughter. The giver smiled and nodded. For the first time in their long months together, Jonas saw him look truly happy. Her name was Rosemary, the giver said.